Well, this hour of news and views is brought to you by Africa Muslims Agency. And as we head towards closure this morning, we are focusing on a book launch and we are talking about the launch of this inspiring biography honoring the life and the legacy of struggle icon, none other than Sheikh Imam Hassan Solomon. And the book is Echoes of Freedom, authored by Faseeg Manie, who is joining us as well, and also together with him, Nasser Solomon, founder and chairman of the Imam Hassan Solomon Foundation. Nasser, and to Faseeg as well, to both of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jummah Mubarak to both of you.
Wa alaikum salam
Walaikum
wa
salam.
rahmatullah. Juma
Shukran
Mubarak
for
to you and your audience.
Yes, Jazakallah khairan so much for joining us. And I must say, Nasser, I was actually pretty excited when I saw the schedule for this interview this morning with both yourself and with Fasih as well, in terms of this book launch, but more importantly, on the life of this great legend. And I'm sure he's left a huge legacy as far as struggle is concerned in this country. We're talking about Imam Hassan Solomon. And let's just understand from yourself, as the chairperson and the founder of the Imam Hassan Solomon Foundation, why this is so important and why the dedication to actually preserve the legacy of this great Imam.
Shukran so much for that question, Inayat. Thank you. Let me just start at the beginning, if you will permit me. So, a good few years back, 2009 to be exact, this was the year that Imam Hassan passed away. At the time, a close family friend, an attorney, a prominent attorney in the Western Cape, Hassan Ari, he suggested the idea of forming a foundation, the purpose of which, at a high level, was to continue Imam Hassan's legacy. So at the time, 2009, 16 years ago, I had young children. I was living overseas in Saudi Arabia, and perhaps for those reasons, it was not opportune. Fast forward 15 years later, 2024, Faseeg Manie contacts me. This was around about April last year, with the idea of wanting to write a book on Imam Hassan's life. So that was then the catalyst that rekindled the idea of the creation of the foundation. So a lot of gratitude and thanks is actually owing to Faseeg, who through his amazing efforts started in April last year to do the research, put everything together, but that actually then served as the catalyst to rekindle the idea. I went back to the attorney Hassan Ari, and he graciously offered to do all of the legal work for the establishment of the foundation pro bono. And then the rest is history. So here we are, Inayat.
Yes, Alhamdulillah. And let's just bring Fasih into the discussion because, as the author, Fasih, when I've just looked at the synopsis that was handed to me and talking about the multifaceted life of Imam Hassan Solomon, rahimahumullah, and just exploring what his life is all about, the narratives about his lineage, his background, and also in terms of how he had actually shaped not only his own personal journey but also looking at the background to this in terms of the arrival of the first Muslims in the Western Cape and how his family and also Imam Hassan Solomon had actually influenced the South African landscape in more ways than one.
Yeah, look, I think I should maybe start off with why I decided to write the book. So, in writing the book, it was my humble attempt to preserve and to honor Imam's legacy. And for me, as an ordinary South African citizen, I'm not speaking just as a Muslim. His story, like those of many South African heroes, is often overlooked in mainstream bookstores where foreign or white authored narratives tend to dominate. So this was my modest attempt to help shine a light on his vital role in our history, but also to write about Imam, those who knew him and who know history will know that he led an absolutely fascinating and inspiring life. It's a story which is worth telling. I mean, it's filled with excitement. For example, his life on the run. When in the security, police were after him, his escapes, and then um, also when he went into exile. It's almost cinematic in its impact and effect. So I thought this is a remarkable narrative that simply had to be shared with readers. But also Imam was not just an anti-apartheid activist, but also a pioneer in interfaith solidarity. For me, story is not just one of abstract theory, empty rhetoric, but real life courage and conviction. So for me, he was really an unsung, hero. And what he actually did was to show that faith can be a powerful tool for societal change.
Yes, certainly, Faseeg. And also, I think Nasser, from what we understand, is he was unrelenting. In fact, in his position towards injustice in terms of social justice as well, and a lot of that, I'm sure, is reflected in the book. And again, looking at the inspiration that scholars like Imam Hassan Solomon actually, bring to people like myself, like yourself as well, and also inspired by people like the late Imam Harun, rahimahumullah, as well. And that actually just speaks volumes in terms of the sacrifices Imam Hassan Solomon had actually made in his life. And as Fasih speaks about, being exiled and also, being on the run, all of this tells us that, these are scholars that must be honored, they must be remembered, and one can never ever forget the legacy that they left behind so that today you and I and everybody else enjoy those relative freedoms that we are enjoying, and a huge contribution that Imam Hassan Solomon made that must be and must be recognized and must never ever be forgotten.
Yeah, look, if I may perhaps come in you here, you see, he viewed Islam as an active force for social justice. So for him, he believes that the Quran mandates resistance against injustice, and also he made the point that faith and activism are in inseparable. In especially in the 80s, there was a time in the Western Cape when Muslim ulama remained, well, not all of them, but many remained really neutral or even passive towards, apartheid. So Imam emerged as really, in a sense, a torchbearer of enlightened Islamic teachings. And he actually challenged the status quo and was able to inspire a whole, generation to engage in political activism. And he was also, very well read. For example, he was very well, versed in the writings of Ali, Shariati, and Qutub, Hassan al-Banna, al-Ghazali. But also, we had read in Engels and Marx, Jean-Paul Sartre, and he was able to link these philosophies to Islam that really challenged, conventional religious thought. So that for me was really outstanding.
Yes, definitely. And also, I think, Nasser, I think from what Fasih has mentioned, and he speaks about influence by people like Hassan al-Banna, Sayyid Qutb as well, the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood as well. And again, a lot of it actually has culminated in his active involvement in a number of structures. And when we look at it, even from an Islamic point of view, from a Muslim point of view, we know about his involvement with SANZEF as well, the South African National Zakah Fund, the Call of Islam, co-founding the Voice of the Cape, which many people in your part of the world obviously enjoy at this point in time. So he saw the need to be involved in these structures and how an ummah can actually benefit from these structures as well, Nasser.
Absolutely. I think, you've touched on quite a few things in Ayat. You mentioned social justice. Imam Hassan, his thinking was different, and perhaps in many ways ahead of its time. So, you recall also Imam Harun. You mentioned Imam Harun. So Imam Harun's, what happened with Imam Harun in 1969, perhaps in many ways influenced the way that the ulama responded to the state apparatus at the time. There was a very deliberate attempt to strike fear into the hearts of the ulama with what happened to Imam Harun. So it was a matter of take note, this could happen to you. So it took immense courage. Someone like Imam Hassan had that courage, the courage of his conviction. He was articulate, also. So he showed that courage, not afraid, to stand up and to make his voice heard and to try and give impetus to the struggle through his activism. And he was the embodiment of a social justice, Muslim social justice activist. And then that's it, just with the foundation and its intentions. The foundation aims to focus on initiatives that align with Imam Hassan's life's work. We've got a good board of trustees. Faseeg is one of them. Uh, Decades of public service and giving back to the community. Zaid Baker, the retired principal of South Peninsula High School. Dr. Najwa Nuruddin Pattar, an academic at CPUT, Cape Town University of Technology. And of course, Hassan Ari, and Bloem Khan, who is the previous chief executive of Metropolitan Health. So these people are committed. They ask the right questions. They understand what it is that the foundation would like to do to achieve through its various initiatives and through collaboration with like-minded institutions. But ultimately, the aim is that we are committed to building and creating an equitable society based on ethical leadership. That ethical leadership we feel needs to be grounded in the Islamic concept of adab and akhlaq. So I mentioned these two words of adab and akhlaq. Somebody I'm sure you are very familiar with is Professor Aslam Fattar, who's also a advisor to the Imam Hassan Foundation. His recent book that delves into the topic, cultivating an ethics of beauty and excellence in a changing world. We co-facilitated a workshop last week where a cohort of Muslim youth movement students were present. But those are the types of initiatives that the foundation wants to build on and continue in terms of the type of legacy continuation that we are focused on. So we're planning to do that and to roll out additional workshops based on the on Faseeg's book, Echoes of Freedom, and that's earmarked for the 16th of June. But just to put things into context, in terms of what the foundation wants to do, in conjunction with Faseeg and in conjunction with some of our collaborating partners.
Yes, Fasih, I think, from what Nasser says, again, a lot can actually come out from this enduring legacy, and which you make mention of, said talking about how his story actually concludes. And for many of us that live up north, and I'm sure many people in South Africa look at the Western Cape, and you refer to this in terms of his legacy being shaped by resilience, by courage, and grassroots activism. And many of us have actually admired the people in the Western Cape for for their resilience, for their courage, and also in terms of their activism. And we see it even now with the Palestinian cause, and in terms of how the Western Cape, in comparison to the rest of the country, has embraced this cause, and they've displayed unwavering resilience as far as this cause is concerned, which we admire. And I'm sure a lot of it that is a lot of it has to do with people like Imam Hassan Solomon, who has inspired generations of the population in the Western Cape, and those obviously that have been in contact with him, and how this has been actually passed from one generation to another.
Yes, yeah. So if one looks at his legacy, Nasser has actually touched on the point of ethics and that kind of leadership. So in terms of ethical leadership, whether it was in the in politics, the mosque, or civic organizations, Imam led with integrity and purpose. And another key point about him, the skill to bridge divides. He was able to navigate the intersections of faith, of politics, activism, and to unite diverse communities around a common cause. And the one thing that also really stood out about him was moral courage. He was unafraid to challenge injustice, even when it meant risking his safety and facing resistance from within his own ranks. For example, in the 50s, early 60s, he was linked to the PAC, the unity movement, but he was able to take a stand, and also the other key thing, he understood the point about a universal struggle. He saw that the fight against oppression, it transcends race and class, geography, language, and religion. He believed in collective action and mutual respect as the pathways to true liberation. So his legacy is huge. It's multifaceted, and I hope that the ulama of today, the young people of today, and even our politicians, his former party, can actually learn from his amazing legacy, inshallah.
Well, inshallah, clearly, and I think there's just one line that says towards the end of the synopsis, talking about Nasser, saying he emerges as an unsung hero, demonstrating how religious conviction can inspire profound societal change. Let's just talk about the launch in itself, Nasser, and what can be expected.
Okay, so look, the screenshot that you showed earlier on related to the launch on the 17th of May, right? That is a second a book discussion, really. The actual launch took place on the 12th of April at the District 6 Homecoming Center in Cape Town. So that was the actual launch. But we had undertaken at the outset that there are going to be more than one event related to the launching and the presentation of the book into the community. So this session on the 17th of May that you have up on your screen now is the second in a series of book discussion events. This one is a collaboration between the Salt River Heritage Society as well as the Claremont and Newlands Heritage Group and the Claremont Main Road Mosque. So Faseeg is part of the panel, and the organizers have asked me to say a few words about the foundation itself. But just to bring you back, the actual was happened on the 12th of April. It was a good launch, well attended, fantastic energy. Ultimately, our intention is to continue the work of sustaining Imam's legacy. It would be an enormous disservice and almost an injustice to waste a legacy of someone who had the work ethic of Imam Gassan. So as Faseeg mentioned, extremely well read. He was in his mid-60s when he was still busy doing formal studies through Grahamstown University, a master's degree. But all of that said, I mean, at grassroots level, the workshop that we co-facilitated in collaboration with Professor Aslam's project, the Democracy, Dialogue and Development Project, led by Professor Aslam Fatah of Stellenbosch University. So that is an opportunity to engage with young people in a practical, interactive, engaging session where the audience participated in lively discussions, produced artifacts and a poem or piece of artwork, and presented this, which then became the topic of a Q&A session. So with this type of thing, there are also always unintended consequences. When people are presenting, when they are involved in interactive discussions, they develop competencies and they develop confidence. Imam Gassan was someone who, during his time at the Clement Maynard Mosque, put in a structured youth development program, a structured leadership development program. He was a man who was very committed at a very practical level. So we want to continue that. So this is one example of an initiative that the foundation is going to be focusing on and putting its energy into. And then, as mentioned, on the 16th of June, so we have this second book discussion, 17 May. Fantastic panel. Dr. Alan Busak is going to be present there. Imam Rashid Umar, who returns from the United States in the next few days. And Jamia Khalant, and the moderator being Ms. Rumani. And then follow up in June, as mentioned, there will be a workshop with the Muslim Youth Movement students, once again based on the book Echoes of Freedom. So those are the types of things and the types of initiatives that the foundation is going to be working with and involved in going forward.
Well, shukran for that, Nasser. And also, I think I just want to end off and talking to Faseeg as well. Faseeg, personally for you, what did it mean to you authoring this book on this great personality?
Look, it's a simple case of we don't need to look far. We add in our midst a person like Imam Gassan, and looking at his life and his legacy, for me, it's about he actually, offers us a very powerful moral compass. For me, his life and his teachings are not, distant echoes of a, bygone era. It's the 80s and 90s and 70s even. If we look at his life, they contain essential, blueprints for how we might, confront the fractures of our present age of Donald Trump, right-wing populism, Islamophobia, and genocide, the erosion of democratic norms, environmental degradation, and the like. If we keep it simple, if we keep it focused, our deen, and there are figures like Imam Gassan, and of course, we are not saying he's the only person. By no stretch of the imagination are we saying that. There are many amazing people, both past and present, who are doing fantastic work. But just to make the point, Imam Hassan, as I said, for me, he was a man who led with conviction. He worked tirelessly to create a society that is fairer, that is more just. And my humble hope is that this book will help to carry his teachings here forward and to ensure that we continue to honor his memory through our actions, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen. Jazakallah khairan so much for that, Fasik. And also to you, Nasser, we will obviously put up the poster up on our website as well for people wanting to attend the launch and also the registration details that are on there. I see there is a QR code as well. So inshallah, we trust and hope that all goes well, and we certainly will follow developments. I'm sure we will get updates, after the 17th of May, or what takes place on the 17th of May. To both of you, Nasser Solomon and to Faseeg Manie, we say shukran, jazakallah khairan so much for taking time out this morning with us right here on Salam Media. We wish both of you all the best, inshallah, for the event, and inshallah, looking further forward to obviously further collaboration, and also in terms of some of the many other projects that you speak of, Nasser, inshallah. I'm sure you will keep us updated, and we can obviously talk about those as well at some point in time. But to both of you, have yourself a great Jummah, inshallah. And once again, shukran so much for taking time out this morning with us here on Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shukran so much to you, Inayat. It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the end of this morning's edition of News and Views. I know we have been running a bit late. We do apologize for that. But with that, I'm signing off. Have yourself a great Jummah, inshallah. And please let us do justice to this day of Jummah, inshallah. The special moments when du'as are accepted. And let us not forget those that are battling, those that are struggling right across the entire world, and particularly for our brothers and sisters out in Palestine, in Gaza. Please raise your hands, reach out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ask Him for His mercy, inshallah. And until we meet again, from myself and the team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.